Share with you some great books that I've read that helped me grow in my leadership and my walk with God. So here's Power Through Prayer by E.M. Bounds, and this is the reality of prayer. It's got some ink stains on it, but E.M. Bounds, anything he writes on prayer, anything he writes in general is great, but on prayer, it really will help you. Can definitely convict you about your prayer life, and it just spark your prayer life and just encourage you to pray more. Sarah Young, Jesus Today. This is a pretty standard devotional. A lot of people read this. Has the scripture. There's also Jesus Calling by Sarah Young. It's a great morning devotional, any time of day, actually, if you just want to have a short devotional to connect with God. This is great. Autobiography of George Mueller. I read this in my first year of college, and it's about George Mueller basically started an orphanage by faith and depended on God for his finances, and was just a prayer warrior, and he saw God just continue to show up. It'll encourage you to pray, encourage you to depend and trust in God. This is a business book called The E-Myth Revisited. This is a great book. I read this to help me start my landscaping business, and it talks about basically how to balance a business and how to, if you're interested in that kind of stuff, and how to kind of work in your strengths and compensate for your weaknesses. This is a good book called Gospel Primer. It's all about the gospel, and in this book, it basically has a lot of poems on the gospel, and it helps you show how the gospel applies to your life. It's just a good book to get you primed for the gospel, hence the name Gospel Primer. This is a book, The Life and Diary of David Brainerd. He was a missionary, and he writes in his journals about how he was converted and how he's traveling around preaching the gospel. This is an awesome book to encourage you to step out in your faith. This has helped me to realize how short life is and how we should use it for God and missions and evangelism. And just seeing this diary, it shows you even the struggles that he went through. And he often writes about feeling so sinful, feeling so weak before God, yet God still used him greatly. Here's a book. This is a great book called Emotionally Healthy Spirituality. Very popular book. Pete Scazzero writes about the importance of, you can't call yourself spiritually mature if you're still emotionally immature. And he talks about how to grow emotionally. He talks about his own testimony and how he learned to grow in these areas in his life. His marriage was falling apart, and it was at that point he hit rock bottom, and he started going to a counselor and learned all these things about caring for his soul and his mind. So, last book, How to Lead When You're Not in Charge. Andy Stanley's, this guy worked with Andy Stanley, and he talks about how oftentimes people wait till they're the boss or the CEO before they think they can lead. But the reality is you can lead even when you're not in charge. You can make an impact by having influence, and leadership is really influence. So you don't have to wait for the title, and it empowers you to lead wherever you're at in your organization, in your life, in your influence. So these are some great books. Recommend them.